Hey everybody, welcome to the 5th episode of the Portland Fly Shop podcast. Today we got Brian Silvey talking all about the summer tactics on the Deschutes River. Post salmon fly all summer, probably the most challenging time of year for most anglers. We got the expert here to reel us in and let us know how to catch fish in the heat. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Portland Fly Shop podcast. I am Jason.
And I'm Nick.
And we have a very, very special guest all the way from Central Oregon, Mr. Brian Silvey. So Brian is, I'm going to embarrass him a little bit, but he probably already knows, a legend amongst Deschutes community and really kind of a legend amongst guides as a whole. All right, so Brian, you've been guiding for how long?
I've been started guiding in 1985.
All right, so 1985. So I was 5 years old, everybody, and he was already wrecking the Deschutes and making those trout sorry that they were ever born. You do rod design for Winston.
Yep.
Mostly on their spay rod side.
Yeah, all spay rods.
All spay rods. And then you design lines for Scientific Anglers.
Yep, I've designed some of their schedule lines for Scientific Angling.
And previously, when Idlewild was still with us, Brian was probably one of the main signature tires for Idlewild and developed some amazing patterns. What else do you do besides guide? I know you're pretty limited on time these days.
It's about it.
All right, well, that's plenty. So if anybody remembers Silvey's Beadhead Pupa, Edible Emmerger, Primetime Pupa, there was a mayfly that was super heavy. It was almost a pre-Euro mayfly. Oh God, what was that?
Super Sinker.
The super was
Good one.
Still a good one.
Yeah. And then a host of steelhead flies, extractor. You had 3 snow cones.
Yeah,
And a ton of stuff, man.
Yeah, I've had quite a few steelhead flies.
Chubby Sally,
Chubby Drake.
Chubby Drake.
There's kind of a laundry list of stuff that Brian has contributed to us, and we owe him a debt of gratitude actually for a lot of things Brian has done. We probably owe a debt of gratitude for stuff that he hasn't done. Things we can learn from not to do.
Yeah, and you can easily still find a lot of those flies at any fly shop around the United States.
Yeah,
and probably in Canada and some other places as well.
And right behind us.
Yeah.
We love Brian's flies, and we will always have Brian's flies. So, cool. Well, we're super happy to have you, Brian. Thanks a ton for making the trip up. I was really, really excited when you said yes, just because you're really the only one I wanted to do this podcast. I think you're really the best one to talk about summer on the Deschutes as far as a technical level and really helping people understand that fish do live there after the salmon fly hatch. Fish actually live in the river all year, and you can go out and catch them, all summer. And a lot of the problems people have, as far as catching fish on the Deschutes in the summer with heat and hatch things and all that, I think can be solved with this episode. But also we've got a bunch of new people in this sport, and spring doesn't resonate with a lot of new anglers as far as when to go fishing. We get a lot of new anglers here when it gets really hot, like it's 90 degrees in Portland, and their brain is like, now it's time to go fishing, and our brain is like, it's cool, spring, fall, So they're just not educated as far as the best times of year yet. And so when they have a summer, when they have time, it'd be nice to help them get into some fish when they head out.
Right.
And the Deschutes can be a pretty technical river.
Yeah, no, very technical at times.
And so, if you're new or you've been struggling with the Deschutes, especially in the heat and the hot months, we really hope this resonates and helps you set the hook a whole bunch more, after we're done here. So that's the whole premise of this. Everybody struggles in the summertime, but we're hoping that stops from here on out. All right, so we're going to go by sections here because Brian drove a long ways, so I feel like we need to be organized this time. So we will jump into basically understanding the Deschutes in the summer. Post-hatch, what are like some of the changes in the river itself, weather, bug activity, river conditions? So what are some of the changes we're going to see moving into the heat from the salmon fly hatch?
So usually in the summer, the water levels are more stable than maybe in the spring. Like the salmon cloud, sometimes it's bouncing around quite a bit. You know, the water temperature sometimes can get a little warmer, so you need to maybe concentrate more on early and late than you would maybe midday in the spring when the salmon flies are really flying. That's really the main thing. And then the river conditions, you know, like I said, it's still the water temperature. The weather's going to be hotter, but that sometimes gets the caddis going even more. It's mainly caddis, you know, this time of year, and PMDs, and there's still some sallies and some other things, but it's pretty much a caddis show right now.
Okay. And then, are there any distinct advantages from going like post hatch? Like what are some advantages that people may not know about fishing in true summer?
Well, to me, in true summer fishing, these fish they become residential in the sense of they're resident trout, but they get spots and they stay there almost all summer.
Okay.
Because the food lane doesn't change as much as it would in the spring, or the food source. So this always sounds funny when I tell people this, but sometimes I catch the same fish, a couple of big ones, 3, 4, 5 times a summer, because they're resident fish. They're living right there. Now, they're not there every day, but you'll see them quite a bit, and I'll catch them in a season, sometimes 4 to 6 times, same fish.
At what point do you start naming them?
About the 6th time.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Only the 6th.
Do we have any good names?
It's usually like Buford and, some big, they're big.
Or why? Cool. Well, that's good. So we got stable water. So if, like, let's say somebody goes June 30th and they catch a couple big fish, pretty much July 15th, they can go right back and try to get those same fish.
Yeah. They'll be there a lot of time. I mean, it might not be the same ones. That's always the question. Is this the same fish or not? But they're all unique. So when we're guiding a lot, we see some of those same fish, like I said. But a big fish lie is a big fish lie. I mean, if it's along the grass, it's undercut, there's dead caddis coming down, there's going to be a big fish there. If you caught them there once, they're probably going to be there again. So
awesome. And then quick overview real quick for new people. What are some particular rules about the Deschutes that are not common throughout the United States? You know, like going to the Deschutes, what's maybe a couple particular things that people need to know before they show up and just start fishing?
The biggest one, if you're using a boat on the Deschutes, you can't fish from any floating device. And that's anything that holds your weight up off the bottom. So sometimes you see guys in little boats where they're standing up, but they cannot be sitting down, anything in the weight that holds them off the bottom. So we use a boat for transportation only, and we get out and wade fish. So I don't know of any other river that is that large that you have to get out and wade fish.
In your opinion, because that's the big debate. I tend to love it that way. What do you think?
I love it that way.
Yeah.
It gives fish sanctuary. You can't cast everywhere. You can't get to everywhere. If you could with a boat, there's so many places you would fish, and I think it would be a lot more crowded.
Oh, for sure.
There'd be 10 times more people because you're earning every fish you're catching, to me.
And for those people, too, that are going to use a boat and go to visit the Deschutes, like, make sure you get your permit. Like, you got to have a boater's pass, right? Like, that is definitely something. Do not go to that river. Even if you're using one of those little one-man inflatables, you got to have a boater's pass.
Yeah. And a boater's pass is a user fee to use the river, basically. It'd be like a pass to go hiking. It's a pass to go boating.
And it does, they honestly do a pretty good job. I mean, it gives you clean restrooms at the campsites. It gives you toilet paper at the campsites, or, so they do use the money. This isn't a nasty letter we'll be writing, because we do see it on the Deschutes, like, in action. I mean, there's some pretty nice, there's better bathrooms on the Deschutes than most of them.
Well, it helps with enforcement. It helps sometimes with boat ramps and things like that we need fixed. So, the money tends to go back. I would agree.
Yeah. And then this podcast in particular, we'll be talking about kind of the Moppin area. There are some tribal areas upriver that you got to be aware of. So you're not allowed to fish the tribal side at all unless you have a tribal permit, which only allows you to fish from Dry Creek down to Trout Creek. So even if you get the pass, there's still about 6 miles,
6 to 8, something like that,
of section that you can fish with the permit. Everything else is off limits. Whether you have the permit or not does not matter.
So as the salmon fly, like, closes, right, and we really start like getting into smaller bugs, are you still using like the same 9'5" weight, or do you use some lighter rods, or what kind of other stuff?
Well, if I'm just want to fish a Dryfly rod, I tend to go to a smaller rod. Usually I use like an 8-foot or 8.5-foot 4-weight is what I like to fish with. Because we're using Caddis mainly as our dry, or a PMD. And those, I just feel like that throws out a lot better than a 9-foot 5-weight. It's not like we're trying to get a lot of distance anyway, but it's way more fun to fish that full.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then do you find that has any problem with like if you're doing like a bigger dry dropper, or wind or anything?
Why? That's the limitation of a 4-weight if you get wind. But there is 4-weights out there that are pretty stout. I mean, they're not as soft as maybe they once were. So I mean, there's Deschutes 4-weights to me. There's other 4-weights, but there's rods that are designed kind of for more the Deschutes style, and it's a 4-weight. Little stiffer rod, can throw it in the wind. I would say you can't fish dry dropper as well than you could with a 9-foot 5-weight. So I'll always have a 9-foot 5-weight for the dry dropper, but I have a 4-weight for the Dryfly River.
Perfect. And then what? Okay, I know you're a guy of microspace, and you enjoy them. Do you bring yours out quite a bit in the summer, or is it more that like kind of fall, spring time that you're going to use a little?
I've used it all year long, but I found that actually in the summer it can be really good because there's moments, the way the Deschutes is now, sometimes there won't be anything hatching, like just weather pattern, or it's like all hatches cycle up and they cycle down. Mm-hmm. It'll go crazy with Caddis and then it cycles back down. There's not much around. That's when I've used my trout spinning and streamer fish, stripping flies, all that kind of stuff. It just had a ball.
Yeah. I mean, do you go to smaller streamers in the summer, or do you go to bigger streamers? Like what's kind of your like go-to size?
Yeah, it's smaller typically. I mean, I wouldn't use a big sculpin like this. Maybe in the spring that would be better, but I mean, I'm using some pretty small little woolly buggers or little leech type pattern in the summer for sure. Mm-hmm. And all black and tan are kind of the 3 colors I really like. But yeah, I usually stick with one size, but then there's days you're like, man, that's not working, I'm going to downsize that thing, and you're like, oh, that's working.
Nice.
So,
and sink tip or anything?
Yeah, sink tips, usually T8 or like a Mo tip or a flow tip of like, T10, T11, those 7.5 that sink.
Yeah.
That works really good. Yeah.
And okay, so lines. I know you've had a bunch of different lines that you've loved throughout the life cycle of all these different changes that these Y line companies make. A little birdie told me at one point in time that you really like the I think it's a Creek SA line.
Yeah,
is that still
Creek trout? Yeah, I like that one.
Yeah,
it's not a dual line. It's great for a lot of people I guide that are maybe not the greatest casters. They only get out once a year. It's like a radical weight forward line. I mean, it really is. It's only 24 feet, so it's super short. I like it because it's just like it's a spay line.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's a short belly spay line is what it is. But I wouldn't use it like if I wanted to throw 30, 40 feet, or if I had to with a Dryfly, I'd rather throw an Infinity Smooth.
Yeah.
That's just much more of the line. But for hopper dropper, for the short range stuff, the grain weight, you have just a little bit of line out. You have more grain weight than you would with a regular fly line. So I like that Creek trout.
Does that work better as like under trees to kind of get it?
It's just such a short head that it just loads the rod a lot easier for people that maybe are not skilled casting off shoulder a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that on the Deschutes since we're raised fishing, and most people are not used to doing this. Mm-hmm. So I think it's easier loading line. And then you can also, it's great for dry dropper because you can bull cast it, water loaded cast. So.
Yeah, there's a lot of little spake casts.
Oh, I spake cast it all the time. So that's why I really like it.
Perfect. Now, and are you downsizing your tippet? Like for summer at all, like 5X? No, okay, 4X.
That's as small as I go on the Deschutes. Now I will say that back in the day when I fished warm strings of Trout Creek all the time, and I was always in the eddies in the afternoon, I would go down to like 5X or something. Since I fish kind of mopping down to the mouth of the Deschutes, we don't have the same eddies as those upper river fish. you know, and so I just stick with 4X because mostly I'm fishing pocket water, riffles, some flat water, but or under the, you know, along the grass, that kind of stuff. Just not the same kind of spooky fish you run into like back eddy fishing.
Nice. And then I feel like this is a hot topic in at least around here, as far as like if you're going to run a dry dropper and you're tying off that dropper, are you using fluorocarbon or nylon?
4
Yeah, damn straight.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So there you heard it from the man himself.
It's or something.
That's where he flies his flag.
Right. If you want it to sink, use fluorocarbon. If you want it to flow, use nylon.
Agreed. 100% agreed.
Don't use fluorocarbon for with the dry fly because that doesn't work very well.
Yeah.
either.
No. Eat that, internet.
I don't think this was ever a thing. I think you just made it.
No, it's a thing.
Pretty much everybody's in agreement with this, isn't it? Like,
There's one person. Trust me. There's one of you.
there's this
Troll. There's that one person that's been bugging him.
Like you know who you are.
not on weekends. You go one more.
Okay. Do I? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay. So last question and kind of like the gear that we're using out there. What is your go-to as far as apparel? Right? Are you just like hoodie and hat, or are you wearing a buff at times? What do you recommend your clients to?
Right. I tell them definitely sun protection. You know, a hoodie. I didn't like the hoodies, a lot of the hoodies, because they don't have pockets, and I like a pocket. They've come out with some shirts now that have at least a pocket. I like that. I like a pocket. So I wear more of a hoodie, a sun hoodie now. Eventually they'll probably cut my ears off anyway, but because I didn't wear sun protection, you know, very much.
I mean, it wasn't around in '85.
What? And being a ski racer and being up on Mount Hood all the time didn't help either. But hoodie, I can't wear a mask. I can't do the buff thing. Yeah, I don't like that. I tell people we put on, like, a lot of times people get in my truck, I tell them to put on their sunscreen then.
Yes. Yeah.
Instead of like halfway through the day, like, oh, I forgot to put on sunscreen. Like, because I'm usually doing it. And I'm like, hey, you guys want some sunscreen? And like, oh, yeah. Like, that's a good way to kind of just get people to wear sunscreen. And it's good for me, too, because I don't wear enough of it myself.
Oh, yeah.
As you can tell.
And I feel like this is another, like, kind of apparel question. There's a lot of people that decide to wet wade, like, all summer long. As far as, okay, I'm guessing you don't as a guide, but what's the percentages of, like, customers? Wet waders is sorry. I mean,
some are big wet waders. I had some guys during the salmon fly hatch that wanted to wet wade. And I'm like, man, I'm freezing. They were perfectly fun. So, you know, and then others will wear waders, you know. Myself, when it gets really hot, like we just had a couple weeks ago?
Oh, yeah. See.
Right. When we were 108 or something higher, so I was wet wading. Man, we're pictures of that. Most of the time, we'll go, I'll tell people, well, you can wear your waders in the morning. And then usually after lunch, that's where it's nicer to, you know, like to wet wade. And so that's kind of what I do usually. Waders in the morning and then wet wade, unless it's over 100 or 95 and up, then I'm like no waders.
Yeah.
So let's get into some technical stuff, and we'll talk about post salmon fly hatch activity. So the salmon fly hatch, obviously we have salmon flies, golden stones, the caddis start showing themselves, early PMDs, PEDs, maybe some blueing olives here and there, plus some drakes.
Yep.
There's a lot going on.
So Sally's
And Sally's.
and the wall of stones and
There. And down. So now that so what are we right now? We're mid-June. We're the 15th of June, which is insane to even say out loud. It's flying by.
right.
So hatch is officially done. What are you, like, generally speaking, and then this year in particular, like what are you seeing now? Like what are our bugs of focus, and like what should people have in their boxes right now?
Right.
From, you know, we'll say now, we'll break this up. Let's go now through July 31st, and then we'll say August 1 is kind of our late summer fall.
Okay. Well, I was out yesterday down below Shears. There was plenty of caddis, and mainly don't have to get technical, but they're tan-bodied, tan caddis. That's all you need to know.
Sure.
And then there's aquatic moths that have shown up,
Okay.
which is another one that's pretty much a caddis, just white. Just think of it that way. And I saw Sallies. So there's still a few Sallies left. So you can still use a bigger chubby or a medium, small chubby. I saw some PMDs.
Wow.
Saw some pale evening duns. Those hatches are starting to fade a little the way we are nowadays. That used to really pick up in July, but now they start fading. I'm sure there's some on the upper river a little more than down in the lower, because sometimes things in the lower river will kind of go through first and it kind of gradually moves upstream. So it's mainly a caddis is the smorgasbord. I mean, you shake a tree, there's billions of them right now. So that's really the main diet, is I call it their protein shake.
Right. Yeah, and caddis, I mean, caddis is just anywhere. Every body of water that you fish, like in moving water
Yeah.
in the summer,
Yeah.
have your caddis.
Yeah.
Is
Have your caddis. Yeah.
Okay, prime time. So what is your strategy? Let's say you put the boat in at 6. What's your strategy for morning, afternoon, evening? Like, how do you tend to rotate through your day to find fish?
Sure. So like either morning or afternoon, I would do the same kind of thing. Is I'm always using a dry fly first. When I first put the boat in, the thing a lot of people don't understand on the Deschutes, at least for me, I can use a dry fly and prospect, is what I call it, and just see if they're looking. Because sometimes you might not see anybody rise them, but you can catch them really well on a dry fly. And so we'll start out on the spot like, hey, let's try a dry in here. Let's see. You know, I haven't seen anybody rise them, but let's just see if they're looking. And sometimes nothing will happen. You're like, oh, okay, they're not looking right now. So then I might change up right then and go, all right, we're going to change to a dropper or some below, not a long dropper, but, down a little bit. And then, it's a matter of going from surface, below the surface, down to the bottom, kind of is the way I would think about it, to make it simplified. But if they are taking the dry, and I'm not seeing many rising, but they're looking up, we'll just keep with that. I mean, you just cover the water you can. Now, it doesn't mean that you could fish one spot and you're thinking, oh, well, we're going to go nail them over here on a dry fly. They might be doing something different, in another section. So you got to be kind of willing to kind of roll with the punches, I call it. You're getting beat up sometimes, but you're like, oh, I figured that one out, and so, caddis is going to be mainly dry for me. And then as I'm not catching them, then I'll go to more of a dropper or an emerger. And then in the evening, then it's going to pick right back up with the dries again. And you should be seeing fish rising by then, because they'll come out in the open a little more. Instead of being in those pockets or hiding under the grass, they're going to come out in more open water where they're actually a little easier to get then.
And that's, I guess we can divert a little bit, but that's kind of the difference between holding lies, feeding lies, prime lies. Prime lies where they can just live and eat and they don't have to move. Holding lie would probably be like that, where they live there until they're hungry and then they have to move out to eat. And where they move out to is a feeding lie. But they're not sure all the time.
Right.
All right, cool. So that's when you hear about this stuff on the internet, feeding line, prime line, all that stuff, that's what that means. Everyone out there in TV land. PMDs on the Deschutes waning now. What do you think? You think like pale evening guns, PMDs, like pretty much through the 20th to the maybe July 1st is about?
Yeah, you'll see them in July sometimes sporadically. But trout love PMDs. I mean, they love those things. To me, that's candy for trout. Like Caddis protein shake, mayflies candy.
So what is it? All right, Mr. Buck. What is it about mayflies that trout will?
I really don't know why, but like I say, I tell people this all the time. Like Caddis is like cheeseburger. Get tired of eating a cheeseburger, they want something else, and the PMD comes off, and they're like, "Oh, I'll eat that." So there could be a million Caddis. I mean, that thing's gonna be everywhere, and a few PMDs come off, and like, "Oh, I love that."
It's so weird.
I don't know why,
but it's mayflies in particular, like
drakes. Yeah,
like they'll eat drakes over anything.
Exactly.
I don't know what it is,
but they'll even do it like sometimes in July. We'll get a blue-wing olive hatch. You'll get betas in July sometimes. I've seen them go right to those, and they're tiny ones. And they'll eat that, and there's still a million Caddis.
Right. It's just, I don't know what it is about mayflies, but
variety.
Candy.
I mean, you eat pizza every single day, and someday you're going to want something else. Cheeseburger. Gotta have that French fry. And that's why you get a variety when you get a cheeseburger, right? You could have crisp cut fries or cross cut or what.
I suppose I'd rather
seasoned.
I'd rather
garlic.
tater tots over fries over both potatoes. So let's go into terrestrials, because a big misconception on the Deschutes would be the hopper fishery. Can you tell me about the do's and don'ts, or the maybes or the whys, and just
The hopper fishing on the Deschutes.
just clear it up for once and for all?
It's non-existent.
All right, there we go.
Wait, I'll put one little thing with it though. If there is a fire, and I've only seen this two times. One was at Warm Springs and one was on the Lower River, where we had a fire that burnt all the way down. And there is a lot of hoppers on the Deschutes,
Yeah.
but they're not in the water. Like, you can throw them at fish rising, they have no idea what that is, because they just don't end up on the water. After a fire, I've seen it where literally they're eating hoppers like crazy. But that's the only time. So, I mean, we're talking 2 times out of all those years. So there is the one whole thing. You're fishing a burned out moonscape and fishing hoppers, but yeah, so.
Yeah, and maybe what, Cascella? Because you just got more grass.
Well, no, they're down in Max Canyon. They're down in the Lower River. You walk around in the fall, you'll see them. They're like early, like August or something. There's huge hop. I mean, there's all little ones, big ones, large ones. I mean, locust-looking ones. They just do not get on the water because we really don't have that farmland to kind of get them to fall, to go in. So
Yeah, most of it rock to the river.
exactly, yeah.
Why would they jump in the river?
That's our ants and beetles of importance, like you'd find in like Montana and Rocky states. Is it mostly just
Nah, I think there's more aquatics in the Deschutes, and I have to say I have caught a few fish in back eddy situations when I was like, I've tried everything. All of a sudden I see a parachute ant. I'm like, maybe let's try this. Nobody tries that, and I mean, I've even used the damsel in a back eddy and caught. So I mean, maybe they've never seen anybody throw it off through them. So
No, I remember.
but I would say terrestrials, no, there's not much.
All right, sure. Cool. So we can clear that up. Yeah. Bring your aquatic bugs. Don't worry about the terrestrials. And then give me some of your must-have, like this is always in Brian Silvey's box all summer. Like, what is staple Brian Silvey fly selection?
Size 16 elk hair caddis. But I tie mine like Deschutes style is what I call it. They got a pretty good hackle on them and a pretty heavy wing.
Okay.
Those are better.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because most caddises that you tie or you see tied, they don't have enough wing or hackle to really keep it up in that fast Deschutes kind of water where they're in the summer. Because they're in some of that pretty fast water. So now I say that for the fast water, but then I would have like a parachute caddis or a spent caddis for the dead version in that soft water along the grass under a tree. Because a lot of times that big bushy caddis that I'm talking about first will not work in that situation. So there's several you want to have. And like, we can go into this, is I always say there's a hatch within a hatch. So you got caddis, there's the larva, pupa, the adult, and then the dead bug. And so between those is kind of what the fish are keying on. It's either the larva or they're eating the pupa as it's emerging. Then they'll eat the adult, like when it's egg laying or emerging too. But then there's the dead bug, and that's the one that a lot of people see fish rising, and they throw that elk hair at them, and they're not getting a response because it's not what they want. It's too bushy. It's just like you said on, I think one of these, one of your Instagrams about cutting down the hackle on a simulator to get it look like a dead salmon claw. And that's the same thing there. Salmon flies go through a process where they're flying around, fluttering. That big bushy bud works great. And then all of a sudden it doesn't. Because the fish have keyed in more on the dead ones, or the ones that are just kind of swimming around, and they will not eat that big bushy one. So it's the same with caddis. So
I mean, one of the things I've always told people too, it's things that are alive move, and things that are dead don't. Right? I mean, it seems simple enough to hear, but if you look at caddis in the evenings, especially on the water, they're hectic, like they're just psychos.
Right.
You throw a salmon fly in the water, it's nothing but commotion, motion. And I think the bushiness of some of these imitates some of that motion. Like these big deer hair wings, it just kind of, it's almost like a cartoon, right? Where they put in motion lines.
Right.
It looks like motion. Like that's how I kind of think of it. But your dead stuff, dead stuff, Mikey. It has to be sparse. low hackle, if any, and your hackle should just be legs.
It's right. It's all wing, really. Right. I think of when I developed my dead caddis that I used, I was kind of getting my butt kicked down on the lower river. I knew what they were eating. I was trying all the stuff you could buy. I was trying everything that I knew about tying like a Kings River caddis or any kind of, turkey wing caddis and all this different stuff. I was just getting clobbered. I mean, I got no response, and they're rising every day right where I was. And so I was going home every night and retying and retying. I was taking some of these dead ones home, and the first ones I tied were upside down, because most caddis, when they die, they're upside down or they're laying on their sides.
Sure.
They're not always perfectly like this, tended wing landing like this. They're always this way or upside down. And if you look at it now, when you see dead caddis, most of the time they're upside down.
Never even noticed.
Right. And so, now you'll look at it and you're like, oh, that one's upside down, or oh, that one's clear on the side. So I was trying those different angles of like, maybe that's what it is. What I realized it was really it's mostly wing. If you look at it, there's hardly a body to them. I mean, it's shrunken down to just nothing. And so there's some legs, and then the antennas are kind of important, I think, too. Mainly if you're tying a real low riding fly, you need those kind of as like rudders or something to stabilize that fly, because if you don't, they kind of tend to sink on you.
So it kind of adds the same theory as a boat. It kind of adds some flotation just by
surface tension. Yeah, it's just surface tension. So you want flies that dead ones are hugely important this time of year.
Cool.
And
then as far as mashing the hats versus attractors, on the Deschutes in particular, what is your ratio of like being able to throw a purple haze versus that exact dead caddis? Like, I mean, it's got to be just, I guess, day by day.
Right. I would say, like, as the year goes on, I mean, you get away with it more in the spring than you could in the summer. Because I've used a purple haze in, like, late April, early May, and the fish are just looking for anything. There's not really a specific hatch. There's a lot of different things. And they're like, oh, that's floating over my head. I'm going to eat that. Where by the time they get maybe, say, late June, July, they're kind of keyed in on what they're eating in their zone they're eating, so they get a little pickier.
Okay.
For sure.
Cool. Cylinder bugs?
And like, would you say with the dead caddis, sorry, backing up slightly.
No.
Is the drift matter more? It's more precise? Like, it's because that thing's like really dead drifting.
Right. So the window of where the fish is going to move to is probably less than this size of this paper right here, probably. At times, because they have one lane that's coming straight like this, and a lot of times they're just eating that same lane. Every once in a while they might move out. Now, that'll be the normal. If you got a huge crazy hatch of egg layers and then they died off in the afternoon towards the evening, they could be all over the place. But typically it's a pretty fine window of where they're at. So it's more precise to get the cast to them, like upstream enough, and then have it drift down to them. It might not be so much it has to be here or here, but it's got to get upstream so they can see it, because it's not making that same movement as a live bug. So I think the distance upstream is a little more than maybe hitting the exact target.
Right.
And if you try to hit the exact target, you're probably going to spook it. Because you're going to pile try to one like right here, trying to get it all, and it's gone. So you want to think upstream a foot or two and then see how that goes. I always have my clients start on the outside and kind of throw it just to give the distance right. Like say he's under a tree or he's coming in a tough spot, and like, okay, let's not go right for him first. Let's work on the outside. I'm like, okay, we have the distance now. Now angle towards that grass, not him. Right. But angle towards that grass, and that current's going to probably bring it to him, because we throw it at him, it's gone.
Yeah.
So that's a good way to do it. There's times we still might miss it and whatever, but it's that you want to get it upstream enough from him.
Yeah.
For sure.
That's crazy. So, I mean, essentially, I guess I'm going to break off my little thing here, but I mean, essentially, if you think about, your classic Spring Creek tactics for the Deschutes, like that's kind of your mindset, like stealth. The Deschutes seems like this huge river to where you could get away with a lot of big, fast rivers. But if you look at where fish actually hold a lot of times on the Deschutes, you're almost fishing Spring Creek water in a giant ass Boulevarre River. So Wouldn't that be accurate? In a lot of cases, it seems.
All right, but I break it up a little differently. And there is the spring creek water, like the grass, the eddies, under the trees, and the slow stuff where they're just sipping. You're just seeing heads coming up. And then there's the fast boulder, pocket water riffle, which those aren't that spooky at times, right? I mean, so you kind of have both, but you got to be stealthy over here. And over here, you can almost step right on top. I mean, you're right on them, and they're still eating because you're hidden from them, and you can get away with more than you can maybe on this side.
So I guess it's, for everybody watching, it's just going to be really important to switch your brain based on the type of water you're fishing. So don't just go up with a plan, like adapt to different types of fishing based on the water you're on.
Yeah,
so if you're fishing grass and soft seams, think Spring Creek. If you're fishing the heavy, choppy riffles, think meat potatoes or whatever.
Right, yeah. No, that's how I would give it, exactly.
Cool. All right, man. Sweet.
You're up here following along. No, well, I'm sorry. One more thing on yours that I wanted to...
What did I miss?
Nymphy.
Well, if you were looking sad and bored over there, so
well, you're not gonna like this.
maybe we will.
So, as far as like nymph tactics, are you mainly doing like a dry dropper? Are you throwing indicators? Like, do you nymph munch in the middle of the day when nothing's happening, or like?
So here's my thing. I have nothing against nymphing, and I do it like I did it yesterday a little bit because I had beginners.
Mm-hmm.
One guy never fished before in his life. So, like, you want it to be fun for them. You want them to catch some fish.
Yes.
I personally don't want to nymph fish much, and as a guide, been doing this long, I don't want to scare the bobber all day. Yeah, I really don't. And I'd rather nymph fish dry dropper. And so that's my nymphing is usually dry dropper. Now, I'm going more than what you should on, most people are told 18 to 24 inches on a dropper.
Yep.
I'm going 3, 4, 5 feet sometimes. I mean, I'm nymphing with it, but we do not overhead cast that. We only water load cast that on.
You're not
You're
not adventurous.
Wait,
I don't want to be. I'm a professional entangler as it is. So now, I mean, I'll nymph fish too, but it's not high on my list because I'll start out with a dry, and if I'm not getting that way, I'm like, all right, let's try dry dropper, and I might go back to the dry, and I might go back to the dry dropper, and then I might go back to the dry, and I might go back to dry dropper, and then I'm like, all right, none of this is working. We got to catch some fish. So I will nymph fish.
when you're dry dropper and you're using a longer leader dropper,
yeah,
it's probably pretty important to have a tungsten bead and all that kind of stuff. Yes, perfect.
There's no other bead anymore. It's all tungsten.
Yeah.
Love or hate Euro nymphing. Either way, I won't say anything about it. What it did is it gave us really good hooks. The quality of hooks are so much better. We have so many different millimeter beads we struggled to have before.
Yes.
It dialed in my dry dropper fish. And the fluorocarbon's even better than the first fluorocarbon I ever had, I hated that stuff. I could not tie a knot. It frayed weird. It did all sorts of things. So that upped my game as a dry dropper guy, kind of, to use that more for my nymphing.
Now, do you use jig hooks on most of
your all over jig hooks?
And that's to help less snaggy?
Less snags, and it just, the sink rate, I think that thing just swings right in. I tell people all the time when they throw it up, if they're throwing Alticore, I'm like, well, you got to wait for that dropper to get down below, and you'll notice, because it'll start moving a little bit more, because you got that slat right underneath it then. So, jig hooks for sure.
Yeah, exactly. I think, I feel that so many people associated jig hooks with Euro nipping.
Yeah,
like I think that jig hooks just also came out when Euro nipping got popular out in the West.
Right.
And so it doesn't have to be Euro. A jig hook just is such a better mousetrap.
It is, and it seems to hold better. Like the hook gaps are better than some of the say a 2457 TMC. I used to use that curved scud hook. I used it on a lot of my nymphs. Good hook, but the gap sometimes if you put a big bead on it, felt like you lost a little space there, right? And so now with these jig hooks, they have such a big hook gap now with the big bead on that you're like, man, look at all, I got more hooking space. So
yeah.
Well, everything just tends to evolve, right? Like something comes out for one thing, and then people do what they do,
Right.
and they just make it into something better. I mean,
Exactly.
it's pretty.
I mean, I'll never say anything bad really about something new that comes out, because sometimes I'll investigate it and then I'll take what I want out of it and go over here.
right.
And that's what I've always done, you know.
Well, and that's what makes you one of the best guides. I mean, it's just like taking the best of something and
Right. No, I mean, like I said, I don't have a problem Euro nymphing or any of that, but I like doing what I want to do. And so I'll just take that and just go over here with it.
yeah.
And it obviously works because you're still employed.
Yeah, I hope it works. I think it works.
So if you're in an area that you know holds fish, that you caught fish for 30 years, how long do you wait to change up? So if plan A is not working, how many is it? 10 casts? Is it 15 minutes? Like, about how long do you take to switch up?
Right. Well, you know, you'd have to break it down to certain spots. So say we're fishing a pocket, and I usually say in the morning they're rising, you know, or I can usually get some on dries. If I have a guy make 5-6 casts, and let's say that perfect little foam line that comes through some boulders, and they don't even get anything, not even a little guy looking, I'm gonna probably change right then.
Cool.
You know, now the only thing I might change is if I saw something rising up here, we might just move up and just, because I like to stick with whatever we're starting with, because then I can teach them how I want them to fish that instead of going this way, that way. You know, because all of a sudden they're getting confused maybe on what I'm trying to get them to do. So sometimes I'll try to stick with one thing for a while, but normally I would want to switch in a couple casts. Now, if I was fishing dry dropper in a riffle too, there's some spots where I'm like, nope, let's move forward. But we're only moving a little bit. We're just hitting these little, you know, current seams, little runways that I'm trying to find them. And it's 2-3 casts, because some of that spots, they're going to eat it right away if they're there. I mean, within 2 casts, you'll know.
Would you think in like a riffle situation, the fly's maybe not as important as just getting in that right lane? Like every cast is just going to drift a little different. You try. In riffles, they tend to be a bit more aggressive.
Right. And I did it the other day. The guy lost his dropper fly, and I was like, and I'm old school, so I have a puck. And I call it, you know, it's like the magic puck. I just kind of grab it and like, what do I want to grab? And it's all mishmash. And if I lost it, I'd be really bummed, because there's a lot of flies in there. But I look at that just like, oh, that beat'll work, you know, and just put it on and then work our way up. And half the time, it's just getting it down to them. I mean, it almost doesn't even matter what color it is, especially in those fast, like crazy fast riffle.
Right.
Like at the head in.
Yeah, they don't have an option.
No, they don't. And usually you throw it in there, and before the guy could even think about it, it's already taken off. And like, oh, you missed him.
Yeah. If they don't, well, yeah.
That's before you can even get your hand on your line.
Right, exactly. They're like, oh, I wasn't ready. And like, you better be ready.
This plays into another question I think I had, and there's been a couple customers, and this isn't just the Deschutes. I feel like this is a lot of places. But like I was talking to a customer, and they're like, "Oh yeah, well I fished this spot all day, and I didn't catch anything." And like, how soon, if you're not catching something, are you like, okay, like it's time to move?
Right.
Like if there's nothing here, we gotta go.
Well, and we have a different option, having a boat. So when you have a boat, you have more options to just move easy, right? And the average person I see on the Deschutes, because I float right through the town of Maupin a lot of times in the spring, and you see a lot of guys that are in the same spot. Like I fish 2 or 3 different spots, and they're still in the same spot.
Yep.
And I'm sure they caught a couple fish when they first got it, because that's how it works. Mm-hmm. And those are the fish that are there, they're biting, they're feeding, and those are the ones you're going to catch. That's when it's time to move on. But it doesn't mean you have to move a long ways. You can move from here to your counter. Yeah, and that's a whole new place, you know. So don't stay in one place too long. I mean, you'll catch your fish. Unless you decide to change techniques, you want to keep it the same thing, you need to move.
Yeah, I feel like that's
so huge. That's huge.
And so many people forget about it, that like if you do catch that one spot or catch that one fish in that spot, and it's just like your feet are glued,
right,
for some reason, right? Yeah. And it's like you gotta move.
Yeah, I mean, with the boat, it's just easier, you know. Yeah. So I'm, you know, I'll hit my spots. We might do dry. We might do dry dropper. If we got them, we didn't get them, we move on. You know, I'm like, all right, well, that was a good start. Let's go somewhere.
Okay, so let's get into, speaking of that, a little bit more places to kind of like fish. So if someone like could go to the Deschutes, I'll say they're going out there for the day. When's the kind of the best time to really like pinpoint that their odds are going to do the best?
For summer fishing, the best, especially when it gets hotter, and this becomes water temperature is really what the key is here, and the sunlight. Like another one that people don't realize about the Deschutes, a lot of our rivers flow north. Certain time of day, the sun gets right in their eyes.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people are out there fishing. There's certain sun angles where you're just not going to get it until you wait till that sun goes left or right or wherever you're at, get out of their eyes. And so that's the first thing to remember. I mean, it could be perfect at 1 o'clock in the afternoon because it could be behind them where you're at. I mean, so just look at the sun first. And then to me, morning and evening become more important as we get into late June, July, even early August, because it gets warmer weather, warmer water temperatures. Those fish really key in on early in the morning and a lot of times late that last hour of summer.
Yeah, it makes sense. So stay late or go early.
Yeah.
In the middle of the day, like there's fish around, but it's going to be harder. And then, so access points, right? Like we'll kind of break this up. And I don't want you to basically be like, stand here. But like,
I do.
I would call that Rock 31.
Yeah, Rock 30.
Yeah, Rock 31. And this is a Rock 31's right here.
But like, let's say kind of like mopping as a general thing. We'll say kind of like above the White River or shears and kind of below. Is there certain times of year that like that matters more or certain conditions that's going to change that for you?
Well, what I think people have a problem with, and they think about the mopping areas once we get into summer, is rafting.
Yeah.
That becomes a big part of the city of Moppeth. There's a way to fish with the rafters, and it might sound basic, but the rafters put in above Moppeth. And so if you get on the Deschutes early in the morning, go downstream.
Yeah.
And fish down below the town of Moppin until about noon. You got till about noon. And because they usually stop in the town of Moppin and have lunch, and then they come down from there. So then after noon, I would, take your break, sit in the shade, whatever, and then go upstream towards, Harpham Flats, Nina, Wapanisha, anywhere up there. Because all the rafters are going to be down in the lower river now, that lower part of the Moppin section heading towards Sandy Beach. You're not going to see them upstream. So that's how you stay away from the rafting crowd.
Yeah. And how much do you pay attention to like the White River in summer?
We usually don't have much trouble with White River in the summer. It's late August, September is usually... When you have a good snowpack, you don't have to worry about it as much. Right now, it's been clear. Like it has had no color whatsoever.
Perfect.
Yep.
I would say the best Deschutes day would be to wake up early and go fishing, then go rafting, and then go fishing.
Right, yeah. Exactly. I mean, yeah, you want to do early and late. Now, there can be some great fishing in the middle of the day, especially when it's not too hot, because a lot of times those caddis on a hot day, they go crazy in the heat. They love that hot weather. And if the crazier they go, the more they egg lay, the more the spit caddis will be in that 4, 5, 6 o'clock. They'll be just dead floating everywhere. So there is that as times. But typically, you're exactly right, early in there.
Now, do you think Warm Springs or Mecca vary any differently than, let's say, the Moppin area?
They don't vary very much up there. Now, you go below Shears Falls, it varies quite a bit. In the sense of, to me, Moppin up towards Warm Springs, you have the eddies, you have some of the just different water that actually fishes pretty well. Where you go below Shears Falls, you have sand. We have that glacial sand that comes from White River.
Yeah.
So a lot of that real slow or real soft water, it's all sand bottom. There's not much aquatic life in sand, and those fish are not going to sit in that. So that's something to pay attention. If you're below Shears Falls, if you see a spot, they're like, ooh, that looks pretty good. If it looks tan, it's sand. There's nothing there, right? So we're above, above Shears, above White River, and that you don't have that same glacial sand.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's one that I didn't kind of message with people sometimes, that we do have that glacial sand in the lower river and not so much up above. Now, I would say up at Warm Springs, since the water temperature stays a little more consistent than maybe Maubin or down below Shears, you know, you have a lot more of that eddies under the trees. I mean, like spring creek fishing, like heads everywhere. I mean, it's like soup sometimes. I mean, you can just watch them just grabbing stuff, you know. So that's the main difference, I think, at Warm Springs for sure. It's water temperature.
Now, and then I feel like we've talked about this a little bit already, but like for someone that's going and really kind of new to the Deschutes, what features do you think they should be looking for to like kind of start their like summer fishing? Right? Is it more riffles, and at kind of what time, or is it under the trees, kind of at what time of the day?
Right. So I would probably start. I mean, to me, the easiest would be a riffle, but not all riffles are the same.
Yeah, 100%.
So some riffles might look good, but if it, you know, say it's doing its break, and a riffle is where it's, you know, got a lot of choppy water or nervous water, if it doesn't drop, if it only drops this much, there's probably not going to be anything there.
Right.
You know, I mean, you need it to get green. Like, look for green waters. What I tell my clients, they'll be like, oh, see where it gets a little greener or darker? That's where the drop is. That's where a fish should be.
Yeah.
And you'll notice when you throw your fly in there, all of a sudden, if you hit the right seam, that where it dropped, your fly's going to slow down there for just a second and then maybe move on again. Like, oh, that's the bucket right there. Mm-hmm. And so you need that at least 2 foot, maybe, you know, 1.5 to 2 feet drop from wherever it was. I mean, if it's this deep,
like it'll open a fish, yeah.
Right, exactly. But it might come off a riffle that much. But then if it drops like this, there could be a fish. I mean, I've caught fish in that, you know. I mean, those sitting there. But typically, it's usually about this deep, and then it's dropping to 3-4 feet a lot of times. Mm-hmm. You know, and those are the buckets that you want to look for. And those are ones that are easier to see, I would think. The under the trees can be difficult. Sometimes to see the fish, because people think they're going to be splashing or making big, you know, easy to see. A lot of times just like the tiniest dimple. I mean, you have to concentrate and watch to see some of these fish, because you're just seeing their head.
I feel like that's the biggest misconception with a lot of people like learning to fly fish, is that like they think they're just going to see these rising fish like splashing bugs constantly, and that's right. That, you know, the fish is dry flying now.
Right.
There's so many things. It's like you just need to kind of know the water that those fish can be in and put that dry fly in there, because a lot of times like that might be just enough for them to be force fed.
Well, they're opportunistic, you know, to me, and they're habitable, and if they're having a habit of looking up, they'll look up. So I mean, you don't have to see them rise. There's a lot of days we'll fish dry flies almost all day and hardly see a fish rise other than ones that tour our flock.
Yeah,
you know, and they're just coming up. They're looking, you know, and that to me, that could be the funnest time. You're just like, oh my God, I can't believe that came out of there. That was a huge one. We never even saw him.
Yeah.
You know, so,
even more hungry for the...
Right, exactly. So,
all right, so let's go over some techniques and some like nitty gritty of techniques. Maybe different than the salmon fly hatch, because the river will be getting lower, clearer. So as far as dry fly techniques, how important now is it to maintain drag-free drifts and really get your game on as far as very specific types of fishing?
Right. So I'd break it down again to the 2 different types of water. The fast riffle, and then the slower water like eddies, trees, along the grass. The fast riffles, drag-free, sometimes is almost impossible because it's going so fast. And I don't think it's as important in that kind of situation. And a lot of times, this is one that gets people as their fly sinks, and especially with Caddis. They think, oh no, it's not floating, I'm not going to catch anything. That's one that, like, a Caddis sunk can be a deadly thing in that really fast, riffly water. The drag-free drift needs to happen in the grass, under the tree, in that softer water, because those guys are sipping those spent Caddis or a spent mayfly or whatever it is. That's where it's really more important than maybe that fast riffle or pocket.
what's your number one way to help? Like if you're fishing grass and slower stuff, do you extend your tippet a little more to help, get some more loops on the water? Is that something you do?
Right. I would usually I typically with my clients, and this might sound funny, I use a 7.5 foot leader a lot of 4X. Because a lot of times they can just pop it in there, because that 9 foot sometimes is a little much. If somebody's new, then that's going to float and go into a tree. But when I'm fishing certain situations, that becomes that 9 foot or maybe even a little more than 9 feet leader to get some of that squiggly in the leader to help, just slowly come through that area so you don't, skate the fly. And
Sure. Well, and I think microdrag can be important too, because there's drag that you can see, and then there's drag that only the fish can see that are this far away from it. And when you're looking at a size 16 bug, 20 feet at 45 years old is quite a distance. So,
yeah, I keep everything short. I mean, I'm not throwing long casts really anywhere on the Deschutes at times. I mean, there's times you can in certain situations, but I mean, a lot of the casts are 15 to 20 feet, maybe. I mean, sometimes they're even shorter than that, so we can, instead of having people trying to strip all that back in because there's so much current in some waters, I'm just having to throw it and lift to pick up that slack. And sometimes we're only looking, I'm not trying to get 3-4 foot drip. I mean, I'm looking for maybe a foot and a half in that certain spot to get that drip, to get that fish to eat that fly. So
that's the benefit of the creek line. We were talking.
Yeah.
You can just pick it up and make a cast, let it up. You're
right. Yeah.
And then if we're talking emergers, Caddis emergers, the emergers are just a huge part of summer fishing. Do you tend to swing those or dead drift, or what's your, especially as far as emergers go, what's your primary mode of technique?
Right. Well, to explain, there's a rise for an adult bug, and then there's a rise for an emerger. And sometimes it's hard to think of the two differently, but if you see a real splashy rise, a lot of times, or one is just, an explosion that you're like, God, I didn't even see a bug there. It's probably an emerger. It's probably a pupa swimming across the current. Those pupas swim fast. I mean, they're quick coming across the current. And so those trout are just coming up, and you'll see them splash, but it really is not at the surface. And so an emerger to me would be like one of my Caddis pupas, the prime time, or the edible emerger. We used to trail that off an elk hair. It's kind of close sometimes, not very far away. And, usually I'd throw both tandem together and then maybe fish the elk hair first. And as that picks up speed and comes around, that's when that pupa will pick up fish. And if you're seeing a lot of that, sometimes I'll have guys swinging a little ways, a little farther than maybe you would. But yeah, you want to kind of keep an eye out on if it's either an adult rise or that pupa rise. Like I said, sometimes it's hard people to figure out between the two, but if you're seeing bugs where they're feeding on them, it's going to be an adult probably. If you're not seeing much and you're still seeing fish rising, that's probably some kind of an emergent.
Is that the tail that we're seeing on the more splashy one, you think? Or
I think they're coming up so quick, mouth open, trying to catch that emerger. You're just seeing just the explosion of them just coming through the surface. They could have grabbed it, down here, but they're coming so hard at it because those things are fast. That's why it's such a violent take on those emergers anyway, too, if you're swinging those.
So why do you think, I'm deviating off here because my section's done, but I do have a question. Why do you think the Deschutes kind of it has a reputation of not being a Dryfly River? And if you really spend time, especially in the Maupin area, it's absolutely Dryfly River. There's no doubt it's a Dryfly River.
No doubt.
Where is that disconnect? Why did it happen that way where so many people don't believe it's a Dryfly? Is it just because they're not good or they don't see the rises?
I think they're just, there's a lot of times, like I said earlier, that not many fish are rising, but you can make them rise, and it's, say you're on a river for 8 hours. What part of the 8 hours are they rising? If you do a 9 to 5, you might see them in the morning, when you first get there. There might be a lull all the way past 5, you might not see them rising, right? If you change that to early in the morning, you might see them rising like crazy. And then you get to noon, maybe they kind of stop, you know? So there's moments when the river is, you know, full of fish feeding on the surface. And the same thing with the evening. That last hour, God, you can see places where as far as you can see fish around.
It's just crazy how it's got this reputation that's really not true.
No, it's not true.
We've shown up and literally fished to noses like you were on a Missouri in Montana, and there's no different.
No.
And people almost don't believe me on the show. Like, they just don't. Like,
Oh, there's people that come in here and are like, oh, you can't catch them in the summer on dries. Like, it's not a thing.
it's just so bizarre.
You have to put the effort in to go find it. If you're fishing a section, like we talked about before, for a long period of time, you're probably not going to find them rising.
Well, the river below Shears is still a big mystery to most. It's much easier fish from a boat, for sure. I mean, those banks,
They're steep.
they're steep.
Yes.
And most people are either going to be in Moffat or Warm Springs because it's just much easier to get
Longer route.
Get from your car to the river a lot of times a day. It's just easier. But I do think the lack of pressure down low really makes it more of a better fishing river, at least for dry flies, because they just don't get hooked. They don't get pressure, and then it reads different down there.
Right. And it is because it's got the glacial effect from White River is why to me it's a lot different below Shears Falls than mopping up. And
it takes a lot longer to learn.
Sure. Yeah, no, it's different. Like, because there's a lot more riffles on the upper river than there is down in the lower. I mean, and if you go from the upper catching them really well in those riffles and you try to find those same looking riffles on the lower, you might not catch any of those riffles because they're just different.
Yeah.
That's 100 miles of difference, though. I mean, if you think about it, that's a long river and things change as you go down.
Well, in most rivers in Montana, you go down 100 miles and it's not even a fishery anymore.
Exactly.
You know, it's too warm or whatever.
And in my lifetime on the Deschutes, below Shears Falls was not a very good trout fishery when I was younger because they grazed the heck out of it with cattle. And it just wasn't that good of a trout fishery. It wasn't until after the 96 flood we had where we had the riparian zone get fixed because they got rid of the cattle. We had more fish come down after that 96 flood because it was 82,000 CFS. That's going to move some fish around.
No kidding.
Right. And we had all those fish come down there and we had the right habitat. And sure, the numbers have dropped since that 96 flood, but there's a lot more fish down there because we have a better habitat than we had before.
It's pretty crazy how stereotypes last. So even what changes, things just hold true. Because to this day, we get people saying the fishing is a trout. There's no good trout fishing.
Well, if you read all the older books
Yeah.
about the Deschutes, they always said stay above White River. And when I was younger, I'd trout fish down there when I was driving shuttle or I was working in a fly shop or whatever. And I would try to trout fish in the middle of the day instead of trying to throw sink tips or something. I found some trout, but there was only certain places where I could really catch them, where there's way more down there now.
Sure. So it's good down there now.
Exactly.
And some of the bug lab down there is epic.
Right. It's different than up above, right? It's got its own uniqueness, which I love. That's where I spend most of my time on that alone.
I don't know if I've ever seen more yellow sallies in my life than
That's a huge edge, though.
lizards. It's insane.
Now, this year, I'm stealing from your section. This year, we're probably going to have a little bit warmer temps. I mean, I hope that it just cools down and we have a nice, like, mellow summer.
Right.
But let's say it's a little warm.
We got the 2 hotter months coming, and that's what's coming. We don't know yet.
And we don't have a huge snowpack compared to some years. Is there any tips that you can give to the new angler as far as like fish handling, right? As far as like releasing or being a guide. I mean, you release thousands and thousands of fish.
Right.
What's the best thing that you?
Well, what I do is pretty much in the summer, I don't let anybody take any pictures of fish holding like this or something, right? Like that just doesn't happen. If they want a picture of it, I'm usually using my net or my hand, and we just keep it in the water.
Yeah.
I mean, I just don't lift them up because it's just too much stress on them. And as you go down, farther down below them up and down towards Shears down, I mean, the water can get pretty warm, and we'll do our own hoot owl is what I end up doing. And if people don't know what a hoot owl is, that means you stop after 2 o'clock.
Yeah.
2 p.m. you're done. And Oregon has never really done that other than one time on the Deschutes where we had actual hoot owl. But really, you shouldn't fish if the water gets past 68 degrees. 65 degrees to me would be, I'd be done already. But really, it's 68 would be, you should not even be fishing really any part of the Deschutes if it's above that. And that's that lower river is where that's going to happen.
You're not going to see that very commonly up at like trout.
No. You're not going to see that on the upper. You're not going to see that probably in Maupin either.
Yeah.
But down on the lower river, you're going to see that. And so I just don't really. And now salmon fly hatch, you can do it. I mean, the water's a lot colder. But as we get in the summer, the fish holding thing is just not. So I might have people hold it just in the net.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's perfect.
And that's ideal.
It actually makes better pictures.
I agree. I like the close up where the fish is here, and you just take the because you see more of the fish. Who cares about what you're holding it? I mean, you want to remember the fish.
The coolest pictures anyway are the ones with the water, like with more to it than just a hero shot. Like,
right.
So yeah, the hero shot's cool, but the art and the cool picture is the one where it's in the water anyway.
I mean, who wants to see a picture of a guy who looks like he's squatting and holding a fish? I mean, it looks terrible. It does. No. And so you'd rather have just the fish. So I always have people like, no, I'm not going to take a picture of you, or let's take a picture of the fish.
So
you're doing that rifle pose.
So what you're saying is if someone wants a Tinder picture of hold their fish, they need to do it earlier in the season. Yeah. And salmon fly hatch.
Exactly. Yes.
As new anglers like come to you and clients, all that kind of stuff, I know everybody can be a better caster and all that kind of stuff, but is there anything that you would have somebody like work on as far as before they go to the Deschutes? Like, is it that off-shoulder cast?
Right. Well, see, if you're right-handed and you're fishing the roadside, you have no problem because you're working upstream and you're casting right-handed all day. Now, if you're a left-hander, you're fishing the roadside, then you're going to have to do the off-shoulder. Well,
exactly.
What happens with most people, they go with a guide, is we're fishing the other side.
Yeah.
And so they're going to have to learn how to cast off-shoulder. Now, there's a few places where we got room to cast off your right, but most everything's off-shoulder. And most people start trying to do this or something, and it's really not that. It's the rod tips over here and your ant's right here. You can keep it almost over here and just bring your rod tip over this way.
Yeah.
As soon as you start doing this is trouble.
Yeah.
So that is a key one, is really that off-shoulder cast. And like I said, it's not hand over here, it's rod tip over there.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And then probably is like the fly hitting too hard. So.
Right. Well, then we'll break it up again as the water, kind of like, because the fast water, I don't think that's that big of a deal. I mean, that salmon fly hatch is definitely not.
Oh, yeah. You almost.
And I don't think in Caddis really is that much either. But it's so fast, they're just going to react to it anyway. That slower water, it's huge. I mean, if you, like I had a guy the other day that was falls casting, he was doing pretty well off shoulder, but as he was going forward, it was ticking the water each time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, we got to quit doing that. To me, that's like throwing rocks at him.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going ding, ding, ding. Like, that's not good.
Yeah.
I mean,
The wrong dinner bell.
right, yeah. And these fish, a lot of times, they're not coming from the bottom up. They're sitting there like this. And if you got a chance to watch them, they're like, ooh, I'll eat that. They're right below the surface.
Oh, yeah. Inches.
Right. They're not that far down. They're not coming from the depths. So, like, one little ding, it's over. I mean, they're gone.
Yeah, we've seen dorsals.
Right, yeah, sure. Yeah, so, yes, that off-shoulder one is huge in my book because as a guide, we're always on the boat side is what most people want to do.
Yes.
Is that if you're right-handed, you want to be able to cast off-shoulder or be ambidextrous.
Any other tips that you would give to any anglers on the Deschutes, tactical or there otherwise?
Always cast before you wade too far out into the river.
Yeah.
There's times when people, like sometimes people get out of my boat and I'd be like, okay, you're going to go upstream. You're going to start right here at the boat. Before I look, the guy that went upstream is waded out like knee deep, into the riffle where I just wanted him to fish, a dryfly in this much water. He's already waded right through it. So if you're going to fish dries, cast in close. And I have this weird, I guess I call it a grid, where I start here and work your way out. Then go back, work up, start back here, and you'll get kind of a rhythm on where those fish are going to be. Some days they're in.
Right.
Some days they're out here. Some days they're way out. If you do that, you'll kind of grid fish this, and you'll find them without wrecking them before you fish them. Now, if you're going to nymph fish, you can't do this inside. You can only do the outside. Same with dropper. I'm not going to be able to fish that inside. I got to only fish the outside. So you're kind of making yourself only fish a certain kind of water by doing that, but that's fine. Just don't wait out there before you really take inventory or kind of decide how you're going to fish.
Now, I know you're a guide and you have more gear than probably every single person listening to this. So when you're talking about like, oh, cool, this is, I can only fish a dry here, but I can fish a dry dropper here, and then I've got this technique.
Right.
You'll have those already rigged up in the boat, ready to go.
Of course I do.
Yeah.
So that makes it easier for us to change. And I have people bring their own rods, but I have other rods rigged because I don't want to re-rig all day with theirs. And that becomes a problem when you have a single fly rod on and how you're going to fish. And so that's just the person's choice. Like, how do you want to start the day? Like,
now
that's a hard one.
If the guy, okay, so we'll go back to newbie.
Yeah.
But newbie-ish. Let's say he has actually 2 rods.
Yeah.
All right. How would you have him set up those 2 rods if you were going to fish with your style?
I would have one with the dry.
Just plain dry.
Plain dry. So floating line, anywhere 8 foot, 9 foot leaders, something like that. 4X with an elk hair Caddis. That's how we this time here, right now.
Right.
And then I would have the other rod, say if it was a 5-weight too. Say you had a 5 and a 6. 5 would be the dry flies, 6 would be the dry drop. And then I would have, a lot of times with the dry dropper, I use a short leader to the dry. And I use a 7.5, and I actually cut it back a little bit.
Aggressive.
Well, it's
Easy to turn over.
easy to turn over. There you go. They're professional entangler. Doesn't want to do it too often. So, and then I would have whatever depth I want. And if the average person fishes a dropper 18 to 24 inches, that's great because you're going to overhead cast it, right? It won't tangle as much. I'm nymphing with my dry dropper a lot. So I have it at 3 foot, 3.5 feet, but I'm not overheading that much.
Just
Water loaded on it. So, and you won't have the tangles as bad. So that's what people have problems with when they fish dry droppers. They go too long, they start casting too much, and it's a tangled up patch.
yeah, happens all the time.
All the time.
Yeah, happened to me last week.
You know how you catch?
Well, I can tangle too. Everybody tangles. Like,
You know how you catch smart fish? Flies on the water.
not so much on the water, in the water.
In the water. Yeah.
What are some resources to look at before they hit the river as far as flows, hash charts, things like that? Just some resources that people can stick in their back pocket to look at before they go fishing.
Well, you guys have an app that covers a lot of that.
We do. It's called Lateralize.
There you go. If you don't have that, there's USGS sites for all the water levels on anywhere you want to go fishing anyway. And so most people know that, but if you don't, you can look it up online. There's such a resource now of just this compared to what maybe we used to have when I started fishing. It was, you had to call a number to maybe get a water level or a fish count or any of that. Or you're looking through a magazine or a book that some of the first fly time books I had were just pin drawing, on stuff. They weren't even colored, anything. So you have so much resource now, but really, coming into a fly shop and talking to somebody and showing what flies will work for that particular time is a huge resource, really, that a lot of people need to use more. All right, so here's a selection of, I think we got 10 flies there that I would recommend for the Deschutes this time of year till basically the end of July, maybe 1st of August. So the first one we have would be a Caddis larva. This is like a green rockworm on a jig style, great for dropper fishing. This is a Silvey's Caddis pupa. Kind of no wrong or right way to fish this. You can swing this. You can nymph fish this. dry dropper, works really well. This is an edible emerger. This is the one that I like to trail behind an elk hair or just swing. Classic elk hair caddis. This is a tan body. Looks like a 16. Great dry fly for July and August. This is another little caddis. This one has more of a CDC wing is what it looks like. There's a lot of aquatic moths in the summer, and that one looks really great for that. This one's parachute caddis, but more of a spent caddis that works great for the dead caddis or any of the under the trees and slow water that you're fishing, but you can throw that in a riffle too. Another one that a lot of people don't use is be a little midge. There's a lot of midges sometimes in the summer. That can be a great fly when you're seeing one nymphing and you're not getting them on anything, but you still see them working underneath the surface. This is another caddis pupa, great for dropper fishing. You could even swing that. Another one, a little sleeper, still this time of year on the lower river below Shears Falls, there's little yellow sallies. That can be a great fly. Then my little secret fly here, I love a rusty spinner. So if you see a fish rising or sipping, usually in some really soft water, and he's not taking that spent caddis or maybe your elk hair, you put that spinner on, they will usually take that spinner. So that's kind of my top 10 flies for the summer on the Deschutes.
And we do have packages now. We've got Brian's personal fly selections. If you want to talk to us about that, that are guaranteed to work. Otherwise, Brian will give you a free crib.
Oh God, they're gonna try them all the time, and it'll be just big trip,
And then, how does somebody get a hold of you if they want to book a trip, which you absolutely should? I mean, really, if we're talking about new people on the Deschutes, especially if you've been struggling, you don't have to be new. You can be a long-time angler and get your ass kicked on the Deschutes. Trust me, I know this.
We've all been.
All too well.
even me. Yeah.
But hiring a guy, somebody like you that knows the spots, knows the ins and outs, can really help accelerate somebody's learning curve by years.
Right.
By literal years.
And here's the thing I run into, though. People are like, well, I don't have a boat. And I'm like, well, the water's the same. Like, it doesn't matter if you're on the roadside or the boat side. A riffle's a riffle, a pocket's a pocket, a shady tree's a shady tree. I mean, it doesn't matter on which side, but if you hire a guide, they're going to show you all those different spots and get you dialed in way quicker than you can figure out on your own. I mean,
And if you
just a given.
if you're on the roadside, the grass always looks greener, and you're gonna always think that the other side is the best.
Right.
It not always is.
When I go fishing, I don't put my boat in. I drive the road. It's so much quicker and easier.
Yeah.
And I can hit a ton of spots just driving around. I can go up, I can go down. Yeah. In my boat, I can only go one direction.
Exactly.
Well, and I think, too, it's important for people to... journaling used to be a thing, and fly fishing. It used to be a huge thing. I mean, companies would sell
Fly fishing journal.
fly fishing journals, black.
I wrote a lot of notes on certain things for sure, yeah.
And I think it's honestly, it should make a comeback, especially if for new anglers. It's so important. Like if you're driving down the river and it's 5 p.m. and you're like, I found shade here at 5. Shade in the summertime is valuable real estate on the Deschutes. And every bend is going to be different. And all these little things, this bend had shade at 5:30, whereas this bend took till 7:30.
Right, and that's huge because sometimes that bend at 5:30 is one of the few that has that early shade. Everywhere else, maybe in that whole area, it might not be till 7 or 7:30.
Right, and I think that just jotting things down, keeping a journal, what the river level was, get a thermometer with you, especially if you're interested in insect hatches. You see bugs hatch and take that water temp. That's key information. But journaling, keeping records, and stuff that you can go back to and as a resource, and I caught fish here this time at this water level, I think that's huge. And especially for repetitive knowledge, I think is really good. And anyway, bring journaling back, especially if you're new. It's going to help you. It's like an old thing, but whatever, I'm old, so.
But it does work. It does order, so I would agree with you.
I just, well, I do think part of the problem we've had with the internet is, and when I was doing the app, I realized this really fast. About 2% of the information from books made it to the internet. Really, like the books are gold. And I think authors had much more pride and they want it to be correct. And the internet is so full of, we'll just sell it to you. You know, a lot of it's just gatekeep by dollars.
And it's fast. I mean, it's not always accurate. It's just quick, fast. Like, here it is. Here it is.
And it's not permanent.
No.
Dave Hughes writes a book.
Yeah.
And that is there forever. Right. Dave Hughes' name attached. So Dave Hughes wants it to be perfect and correct.
Right.
You can change a website in 30 seconds, and now nobody's the wiser. And it never happened. We were never wrong, or we never said that, you know. So I do, you know, anyway, that's my point, is the internet's great, but don't take everything on the internet for reality. Like, create your own reality with your own journaling, I guess, is kind of the long way around that. Cool. And then, real quick, how do I get a hold of you if I want to book a trip?
I have a website. It's solisflyfishing.com. You can get a hold of me on Instagram. You can find me on Instagram. I also have a 1-800 number that's on my website, so they can call on that too.
So that's back when 1-800.
I know, it's kind of funny. People are always like, "You got a 1-800 number?" I'm like, "Yeah, damn right I do."
Guess ever find a payphone?
Maybe you can find a payphone.
That's a lot harder to find than a Deschutes.
Yeah, payphones are rough, man.
Yeah, I think they're antiques now.
Yeah, most of them turned them into like.
There was one in Moppet at the Deschutes Motel. I used to call him home for all the time.
We will link all of his information to in the description, website and Instagram handle. I doubt you're on Twitter.
No,
No, not a
I
Twitter.
don't have that kind of time.
Well, he is on Tinder. All right, cool. And then there's something about a lost boat I've been waiting all day to hear about.
All right, well, if you want to hear a story,
I'd love to hear Sylvia's.
Okay. So every guide, well, not every guide. I'll say, I ask all the guides that I run into, have you lost your boat? And I usually go, have you lost your boat yet? Yeah. And they're like, no, I've never lost my boat. Like, yeah, I've been guiding at Deschutes long enough. So every guide I know that's been guiding on the Deschutes has lost their boat. So there's always some grandiose story. And this is a story I'm going to tell about losing my boat. So in 40 years, I've lost my boat twice. It's pretty good. Not bad. Hey, I don't know. I feel like that's pretty good. Because that's over 100 days on each year of those. So it's a couple days. So I was floating through the town of Maupin with my raft. And I will say it's in the afternoon. It was probably, it was after lunch. It was in the afternoon. It was kind of a hot, it was during the stone flap still, and it was pretty hot out. So I actually backed into the spot with my raft because I wanted to sit in the shade and drink my Gatorade or something is what I was doing. And I don't really have an anchor system on my raft. And so I have an anchor, but sometimes I usually drag it up and then throw anchor. Well, I didn't do that. So, because I was sitting in the boat drinking Gatorade, and my guy all of a sudden falls in. And he's kind of swimming, like a little bit, and which is bad for that guy. But I mean, it wasn't a bad spot, but I'm like, oh shit, you know, and I'm like, better do this, you know. And I help him out. I'm like, hey, are you okay? I get him up. It's all good. He just got a little dunk, you know. I just tripped on a rock. It wasn't super deep, but I was just afraid he was going to
Go further down.
yeah, kind of go further down. So I jumped out to the rescue. It's like, oh, we're all good. Okay, let's get back to fishing. Oh yeah, the boat. Oh God. The boat's gone. I just watch it go around a tree. And I'm like, oh no. So I'm like, you guys stay here, I'll be right back. So I go booking after it. I'm not going swimming for it because people are always like, oh, I swam for my boat. No, not doing that. I hit the railroad tracks.
Much faster.
Much faster. Booking down the railroad tracks. It's coming in. I could probably get it right up here. Train comes. And I'm like, oh, I got to get off the track now. If I would have been on the tracks, I would have got my boat. Now I can't because I have to get off. Train comes. I have to wait for the train to go by.
And that feels like probably eternity.
Oh yeah, no, it feels forever. It's gone. When this is all said and done, it barely went a mile, kind of. But it takes a while to get a mile down in a raft when the wind's blowing because it's slowly going. And this, by the way, the boat's staying dead center. It's really not going anywhere.
Lucky.
Right. But it did come into that eddy that I could have got it. Train comes, I can't get it. So by this time, I'm still running down the tricks. Now Marty Shepard's on the other side of the river.
Oh,
This story gets really good. And he notices it's my boat, nobody in it. So he whips around. I see him driving downstream like he's going to try to get it. Now we're both on the side of the river here. Now it's one of the busiest days you could probably be in the mopping section. I mean, there's people everywhere. And my raft is floating dead middle. And Marty's on one side, I'm on the other. We finally get down to the blue hole is basically where it was.
Whoa, yeah, whoa, okay.
And I was basically below mop. And so from where I was, which would be, I think, Oasis or Grave would be about where I was, to the blue hole is where my boat ended up. Marty was down below that. I was across from that, but the boat is on the roadside now, and a guy grabs it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, you know how to row a boat? And he's like, oh, no, not really. I'm like, jump in that thing. You can row it over here.
What's the worst they could have?
Right. I have him row over, and I'm like, hey, here's my card. You just got a free trip. I gave the guy a free trip for that. And Marty finally comes up. He goes, hey, he just took my free trip. But the story gets even better. So I get the boat back. Big deal. You know, you lose a boat. That happens. So I take off my waders now because I'm really warm now after running basically a mile in boots and waders and walk back to my clients. I get back to about where my clients were and I can't find my clients.
Oh.
And I look up, they're hiking up the hill. There's an old road up the hill that goes, if you'd see it if you look about where the moss pool is.
Yeah.
There's an old road that goes up kind of heading towards the hatchery that way. My guys are halfway up there. And what is going on? So I have to walk up there and I get them to come back down. I'm like, hey, I got the boat. Everything's good. And they're probably not happy with me. And they're like, hey, we called the cops. We called 911 because we thought you went swimming.
Oh.
I'm like, I didn't go swimming. So now I got to deal with that. And
What were they doing up the hill?
they figured they were going to hike out because I went swimming and was gone forever, I guess.
So my guide's dead. I have to hike.
So now, after we get back to the boat, we fish a little more. I mean, everything's fine. I told them, hey, man, shit happens. Like, this is just part of the deal. Stuff happens. This is how you deal with it. You know, I'm good. Like, it happens, you know?
Warm.
But now I got to go over the roadside and flag down the police officer who's looking for some guy that's drowning.
Yep.
I know.
And so that's the end of that. But I get back to town and, I mean, mopping's small, right?
Everyone knew.
Everyone knew. I didn't even have to open my mouth. And like, I go in the store, like, hey, I heard you lost your boat. I go over here, a gas station. Hey, we heard you lost your boat.
Gosh, man.
So,
Especially when the cops get called. That
yeah. I was really shocked about that.
They called the cops.
Does the Hazels have like a police scanner in their shop?
No. But they heard about it right away, and they thought it would, like, oh, that couldn't have been Brian.
He's only lost one boat. And
That was me. It was me. I took credit for it. You know, it happens.
well,
That's my story. I'm sticking to it.
that's
Awesome. So,
Yeah.
what did we learn? Is there a
Maybe you should anchor your boat and you know, maybe secure it better. But I've lost boats where I was able to grab them, but with anchored, you know, the wind blows on the Deschutes or windlessly where you could lose a boat. And that's how most boats are lost, is in the wind where it's blowing one direction, and all of a sudden it blows another direction, and all of a sudden, well, there goes your boat.
exactly?
So
you do see quite a few tents when people think they're going to leave their tent open for ventilation. Yeah.
big old tumbleweeds.
Yeah. It's pretty epic watching a tent just go down the river. But, cool. Well, I can't thank you enough. We're going to go over some flies here, particular flies that Brian likes for summer on the Deschutes, because we always do a fly thing at the end. But really just trying to encourage people to get out all summer and enjoy really the best trout resource in the state of Oregon. I mean, the Deschutes is a technical river, but it's an amazing river at the same time. Like, I don't know, there's not many rivers that can handle as much use as
no doubt.
as the Deschutes,
Yeah.
and still just keep cranking out great days.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I mean, and if you're going there, like I hear it all the time, like, oh, the Deschutes is too crowded. I don't even go over there anymore. A lot of times you can't tell those people any different because they're going to Warm Springs during the salmon fly hatch when it's really happening. Yeah, please, you'll be packed. If you went right now, there's probably hardly anybody, you know? I mean, there'll be a few anglers, but there's plenty of room. So,
well, even on Memorial, you know, I tell this story too. Memorial Day a few years ago, Warm Springs was sold out of boaters passes. We did Pine Tree to Max, and there was us and 2 bank anglers.
oh, no. There's other sections of river than Warm Springs and Trout Creek.
I think it's just because Bend and Redmond, all those exploded. It's a very easy flow.
Easy float, easy shuttle. I mean, and I that's where I cut my teeth guiding the Deschutes, was Warm Springs Trout Creek. I mean, I know it well. It hasn't changed any. I mean, I like that section myself, but it got too crowded, and I'll still go up there, but I'm not going up there until maybe June or July when they're under those trees sipping those dead caddis. And I mean, it's like a spring creek and everybody else is bobble fishing.
Or they're not there.
Right, yeah, exactly.
There's been a lot of times in June, like late June, early July, I'm the only boat. It's
Right.
just crazy.
Yep.
I do love the Maupin section for riffle fishing. Maupin has the riffles, like I think better than Warm Springs. A true Deschutes riffle to me, Maupin is the section. I just love them.
Right, and then below Shears has got the pocket water.
Right. Yeah. So
I mean,
well, yeah, behind the islands and yeah.
Exactly. I mean, it's just got pocket water after pocket water after pocket water. So there's all those sections with all their own unique kind of area.
It is cool as hell. Anything you got? Anything, Nick?
No, I think that's pretty much it.
All right. And,
If you can't catch a fish on the Deschutes now during summer, I don't know how to help you.
and if you have questions, reach out or whatever to us, and we'll answer them the best we can. And I've got Brian on speed dial, so if I can't answer it, I'll just call Brian or make him answer it for you. But yeah, you said all you need to say. You said your piece. Do you feel good about what happened here today?
Yeah.
All right, sweet. Well, thanks a ton, Brian Silvey. We can't thank you enough for being here. This was an episode I really wanted to do badly for everybody that's been having a hard time over there. So, and recap, yeah, the river can fish amazing all summer long. And then real quick, a lot of the hotels and stuff, what I used to do a lot, which I think was awesome, when it gets really hot, you fish an evening, stay the night, and then fish your morning, and then you go home. And so instead of your day being 9 to 5, you just switch the time frame.
Right.
And
Leave till, late afternoon, get to Maupin, fish that, get to your hotel, fish that evening, and then get up early, fish that morning, go back.
right,
to town.
you just shift your times.
Yeah,
You got your 8-9 hours, you just shift the time frame. So,
miss that whole heat and everything. So,
well, awesome. Thank you so much, Brian.
Yes, thank you for joining us. Seriously, we really appreciate it.
And thank you, everybody, for continuing to support this podcast. You have been really amazing to us, and the support's been huge. And I think we should now be able to be on Spotify here within a week. We got approved because of the views free from all of you. So thanks a ton, and we will see you next time.
And don't forget to subscribe down below if you want to hear anything more from YouTube Land.
Yeah,
Or podcasts.
I always forget that part. Sell it, man. Sell it.
Exactly. What the heck? And then we'll have many more podcasts to share with you. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Adios.